Hello reviewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Sony's 1-inch camcorder, that is Z200 and NX800. Yes, they are two same thing with minor changes, and do not ask me how the heck Sony came up with this name, but they did, and they launched both of them at the same time. So we are talking about it. Is just one hardware with extra feature on or off? So what the hell is the deal with camcorder? Aren't they disappeared? Well, yes and no. Camcorders are basically like these puppies, point and shoot camera. They used to be talk of the town back in the day, where you can just give it to any relatives and they can capture some pretty good stuff with this. This was my first digital camera, and point and shoot video. Basically same way. This just gave you a tool that just worked. This is just that, point and shoot for video, meaning you do not have to think about it, you do not have to do extra hassle, you do not have to go through things or rig it out. It's just like you buy it, you put battery into it, you put card into it, you turn it on, done, go home, sweet dreams. It's point and shoot for video. So for many people who just want it to work, and video is their work, it's not like hybrid where photo and video, no, it's just like video is your job. For those people this makes sense. Now can't we do that with smartphone? This is a comparison against smartphone, not a comparison against a cinema camera. Let that be very clear. I'll explain why that is, but fundamentally that's the first thing people are gonna compare. It's like, why can't I do it with my iPhone or A7S III? Pardon me, Sony still makes mobile phone. I just keep forgetting about that. Let's say Samsung S23. So first thing is, this puppy has 1-inch sensor, the big one. Now, is that a very big sensor from camera's point of view? No. From mobile point of view? Yes. This is big. Now, what is the main weak link of mobile phone? Mobile phone, the reason why people are happy with the smartphone photos is simply because it's not real photo. They take the photo and AI paints over it. Now, the AI has become so good that at this point in time, it gives you what you want to see, so people are happy with it. Cool, awesome. And nobody is printing it out. Nobody is like, oh, I'm watching it and zooming in. If you have free time, you can do that, but most people don't. So it's more than good enough. But when you come to video, that AI processing is not that fast yet and nor that good. And the moment light dims even a little bit, yeah, then it falls apart. At that point in time, large sensor is like, I got this. That's the moment when large sensor is like, I got this. When you zoom in, the actual optical zoom of 20x is like, I got this. Now, is it as good as Samsung's telescope that is in your pocket? Not really, because again, still it barely captures anything, and the AI is repainting it, but it looks horrendous, but at least you can see. Here is like, if you can zoom that far, like 20x, you can actually see something in quality. So that's why you're getting a bigger sensor and optical zoom, like actual optical zoom quality. So that's what you're doing. Now, what about battery life? Battery life is being sorted because it has Sony's BP-U series, basically batteries that come from the back. And benefit is you can buy in sizes, meaning you can have a very slim one that comes in the box, you can buy extended one, and you can buy big daddy one. Now, big daddy one is expensive. That's almost 100 watt. That means that's the biggest that Sony could have made before it became illegal for airplanes. Aircrafts have a limit of 100 watt hour. That's why no laptop battery is larger than that, or power bank. You can only go to 100 watt hour. So if you have money, you can buy batteries, and again, it's designed in such a way that you can easily swap it out. It's designed in such a way that you can have a different capacity based on your read. If you do not need very long runtime, you buy a small one. You need ludicrously long runtime, you buy the big daddy one. That's up to you. And it has dual card slots, UHS 2 and CFast Type A. I hate this format, but Sony is like forcing it, but we can't do anything about that. And it has dual way of monitoring it. It has inbuilt LCD, so LCD is there, small LCD, but it does come with solar hood. So if you are outdoor and you want to use that display, you can do that. You do not have to buy accessories for it. On top of that, it also has OLED EVF on the back. Now, thankfully, OLED technology has improved a lot, so EVF on the back is actually really useful. So if you are really in outdoors, you can just plonk it in, no problem. And the eye cup is rotatable, so you can left eye, right eye, you can do that. So inbuilt OVF, basically it's very easy to use. That's the whole point of this puppy. It's very easy to use, and it has manual and auto mode. What does that mean? That simply means back in the old days of handycams, they only had one setting, zoom. Then people realized to start to oomph it up. Now this is a Pro Series equipment, but here's the deal. You do not know whether a professional will use it who knows everything about camera, or someone who's doing it as a job. So they have a switch, meaning if you do not know about camera, you do not want to bother with the camera. You're just like, hey, my job is point and shoot. switch it to auto. Camera is like, I got you, fam. It has all the latest bells and whistle. You do not have to worry about it. It's like, I got you. And if you're like, hey, I'm a bit more capable, a bit more artistic, I want to, frame things, or you're shooting a documentary, something lightweight, it's like, okay, let's set it to manual. And now you control everything manually. So it's a very flexible tool, meaning you do not have to spend the time on this, like, hey, I just want to point and shoot, everything in auto, don't worry about it. Or you're like, okay, let me frame it, let me arrange the scene. If you want to go that route and you're like, okay, I want this ISO, I want this setting, all is available. It's not locked. It's a very clever way tool, so to say. Now, what about specification? Now, specification, this puppy has built-in lens of 24 to 480 mm. That's long. So basically, the biggest full frame lens I have seen is 10x. This puppy is 20x. So it goes far, it goes very far. However, there is a penalty of having that long of a range on that tiny of a body. Now, the handycam looks huge, but actual lens part is small. It's very small. Like, it's, are you serious? That's how small it is. It's very small. So the aperture suffers a lot. How badly? Yeah, if you compare to full frame, it's f7.5 to f12.5. Yeah, aperture is not great. The only reason this is even useful is simply because the sensor technology is good enough at this point in time. So you signal to noise ratio is very improved. So it can actually, even at f12, it can actually show something, and it's big. So both of those things actually help it to see anything in the night. And that's the lens part of it. But the biggest user advantage that you're gonna get is electronic variable ND filter, meaning if you know anything about camera, you know it has a tripod, meaning you have shutter speed, you have ISO, and you have aperture. Now, generally people do not want to tamper with the ISO because there is just one ISO that is the sweet spot, or depending on circuitry, it could have two ISO where it's like the sweet spot that everything is perfectly calibrated, like mid-gray value above and bottom. So if dual ISO people talk about, like, then what about all the ISO setting we see, like 200, 400, 800? That's not true. You have a true ISO of the circuit, and then gain setting, that is post processing on the camera itself, on the gain setting. So you can do that in post production if you have a raw file. That's why you have that ISO exposed. So in video camera, they do not deal with that. Like, and if you watch like actual video camera, they never even say ISO, they say gain. So that's the idea. It's like ISO, you only have, even if it's a dual ISO system, you only have two ISO. But what if you're not happy with it? Because here's the deal. ISO directly controls your shutter speed. Shutter speeds control your motion blur. How does it look? You do not want it to look very janky, because if you're like, hey, there is too much sunlight out there, it happens in India surprisingly often. The moment you go outdoor in India, you'll be like, damn, sun's bright, bro. So at that point in time, you're like, okay, what if I reduce the shutter to 1/200th of a second? Cool, awesome. Everything is perfectly. It just looks ugly because everything would be like, there is no motion blur. It's too fast. So people are like, okay, what if I make it 1/30th of a second, or 1/30th of a 30 frame per second? Cool, awesome. But here's it. At that point in time, it's overexposing. And again, you do not want to change the ISO because it's the sweet spot. What do? ND filter. That's why all cinema camera crew generally carry giant plates of ND. This puppy is like, I got you. There is an internal shutter which just drops, which has electronic variable ND. Now, ND itself is a very good tool where you can, like, okay, 2 stops reduction, 4 stop reduction, physically, optically doing it, nothing electronically, physically doing it. This puppy is like, what if instead of that glass, we have LCD there? So that LCD is electronically controllable, meaning you can fine tune it rather than steps like 2, 4, 8, something like that. You're like, okay, let's just up and down. You control it. So instead of having only 3 things to control, now you have 4 things to control: shutter, ISO, aperture, and electronic ND. And be mindful, in auto mode, that puppy can auto adjust. So it's a really flexible scenario. You are going from indoor environment of a mall to outdoor. The electronic ND is like, it's like, I got you, man. I got you. I will not let sky overexpose. I got you. It will basically save you without any issue. It's like, it's another vector. So it's a very unique thing, and only few Sony cameras have that. It's a rare feature. So from a usability point of view, people just for that feature, shut up, take money. Then for Indian people, this puppy has cooling fan and vents. And be mindful, whenever you're talking about a mirrorless camera, it's not actually tested for long running scenario. FX cameras are, A series are not. A series, because it's a hybrid camera. Now this is a video camera. So they test this puppies to actually run for 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour. And then it's like, okay, yeah, it's not gonna run unless it has a cooling system. So it has a cooling fan and heat sinks, which actually pulls fresh air from the bottom, dump hot air out the outside. So it can actually endure, meaning if I put it on a tripod, feed it power with let's say a USB power delivery, which it does support, and just run it for like, let's say 6 hours, 7 hours. Like, who records for 6, 7 hours? Have you ever been to any conference? Those puppies stretch for long. At that point, this will be like, I got this. Your mirrorless, no matter how good your setup is, rig is, it's like, it will reach overheat. It will. So that's the whole point of this. This is like put and forget. You do not think about it. It has that endurance. So these two things are the biggest. You cannot get this on any other system. Another aspect is it has a relay recording. Now, relay recording is not desirable anymore. It used to be very important because we did not have external capture technology very good. But nowadays, if you have multiple cards, you can be like, okay, card A, card B. Everything is writing into card A. Boom, card A is full. The camera will switch to card B, and you can open the door, and it will not stop the camcorder. It's like, okay, now you pull out the card A, put card C, and now once the card B fills up, card C will start writing, and you can keep relaying it. You can keep filling up cards if you have a lot of cards, or you can keep collecting the card, dumping into memory of like hard drives or something like that. You can do that. So that's a very long relay requirement if you need that. This puppy is like, I got this. If you need it, I got this. Again, I do not know, nowadays it's not that desirable because again, you have HDMI output, capture that, and the Pro variant has a BNC output, which is again how professional do it. So that's there, and that's the primary difference between Model A and Model B. So you have cheap model that is NX800 and the Pro model that is Z200. Z200 has basically extra codecs, so you can see that like this XAVCHS, XAVCS. These two are available in both of them, but XAVC, just that XAVC is only available in Pro mode, and that .mxf, it's a metadata layer that is used in broadcast industry. If you do not know about it, you do not need to know about it. It's a different ecosystem tool. So for those people, it's like they have to buy Z200. For most people, if you do not know what these things mean, just buy NX800. That's the codecs part. Another part is the hardware. If you look at the back of it, this empty slot, that empty slot is filled with BNC. It is like a actual single wire output. HDMI is not designed for long cable run. BNC is designed for that. So if you are like, okay, I'm gonna shoot this wedding, and I have like long crane, which I'm seeing nowadays a lot being used for weddings and all that. So you need a long cable run. Doing that with HDMI is A, very expensive, B, very risky, because the HDMI is not designed for that. It does not have that long, you have to convert HDMI to optical, then have a very long cable run. Or you can just buy a cheap BNC system, and it's locking, so it will not just pull out accidentally. And again, that's how all broadcast industry runs. It's not very high bit rate. It's not like, whoa, bit rate. It's more of like, it's more than good enough for TV, and it's robust enough for TV. That's the whole point. It's not high quality, is not cinema grade, but it is robust, meaning you can trust that. And it also has time code input and output. Now, unfortunately, it does not have gen lock because again, it's Sony. They have to limit the features. But time code still at least makes your life easier, especially if you have to pipe the footage into any other system. It would be useful. So that's the two thing. Now, how long is the battery life gonna? The battery that you're gonna get is BPU35, the smallest battery. That puppy will give you on Pro body 90 minutes of recording time, on average body 120 minutes of recording time. Now, the only thing that I find disappointing in this is like a gen lock, especially for Pro version. Like, you have a dedicated Pro version, come on, gen lock, please. Another part is like, still somehow none of the camera companies are like, what if we have 32-bit input? USB 32-bit input coming from an audio recorder is butter. 32-bit internally, like Panasonic does do that, but it's good, but not great. Like, we want a scenario where you can have like Zoom, Tascam, MixPre, these sort of pro grade hardware. They have all support 32-bit. USB has 32-bit protocol support inbuilt into it. Just pipe it in. That's the one thing missing, because again, that will solve all your timecode issues. Like, just dump that audio. And you do not have to worry, oh, what about that, gain and settings? There is no gain setting. Once you have transferred digitally, there is no gain. It's just digital file stored as a digital file. And who is converting that analog audio? It's audio recorders who are like professionally built one thing, expert at one thing. So that's the thing that does bother me. But I have hope someday in the future, we're going to cross 1990s technology and we're going to finally have 32-bit USB audio in. Someday. Now, the biggest question is like, why bother with this sort of camcorder, right? Camcorders are not very attractive nowadays. It's simply because you are buying a compact lens, you're going to get a compact lens look. And because we are so exposed to full frame camera lenses, we think everything has to have shallow depth of field. That's what mobile cameras do, shallow depth of field. So it's hard to sell. However, You have to understand. Many times people are like, oh, it's a f2.8. No, no, no. You're buying this. You're not buying this. This is what is f2 looks like, right? This is like a true f2.8 full frame. So this is how broadcasting industry works. Like if you are going into Olympic, cricket, football, they generally invest into these lenses, and these lenses are far more expensive than the camera. So, and again, they are huge. They have power. They have a lot of optics, lot of mechanism, lot of encoders. They have a lot of things working in them to make sure that you can get the crisp quality out of it. You cannot replicate this, even though the X range is exactly the same. This is 20x, this is 20x, but this is a different puppy and 10 times more expensive. So when you are want to compare this, like how low can I go? If you have a f4 full frame lens, f4, 24 to 70, or f4 70 to 200, full frame will be like, bro, don't even come close. Like do not try. So fundamentally, do not even compare in terms of optical quality, because again, tiny lens equal tiny output. You need these lens in order to have great quality. And sensor, how small it is compared to full frame. If you go to APS-C, it's 1.5 to 1.6x. You go to micro four third, that is 2x. This puppy is 2.7x. It's small. So you have to be reasonable about that. Like you cannot expect the or optical quality that you're gonna get with like a full-fledged cinema camera or full-fledged mirrorless. You're not going to get, especially with, if those things are coming in the field with a good lens, yeah, do not compare that. However, again, that does optically transfer a penalty into dynamic range and highlight roll off. You do get one thing, you are getting ease of use, meaning you pay for this just so you can just use it. It has all the bells and whistles you need. It has all the functions, every manual motion option, but you can also disable all of them. Just set it to auto, shoot, done. That's what people are paying for. Not everybody wants to build up this rig where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have this SSD capture, I'm gonna have this motor for zooming system, and then we're gonna have a giant battery at the back, and then we're gonna have a cage system, and then we're gonna have ND on the outside. No, buy this, forget about it. Now this is cool and all. If you want to get the quality, this is great, this is awesome. It just comes with a penalty that most people do not want to deal with it. If you are getting paid for the quality, if you are doing a, let's say, movie shoot, go with that. But if you are like, hey, I just want the footage, this is what it is. This is what we are. And many people, even if they are running a YouTube channel, many times they enjoy this rather than a mirrorless camera, simply because mirrorless camera has so many steps. It's like overwhelming. If like, hey, I want to be in front of camera rather than behind of it. Those people are still happy with this. They're like, hey, I just want to put it in, turn it on, forget about it. So for those people, buy this. So for whom it is, well, one thing, it's not a hybrid system. Do not even think about it. It's basically recording your video is your main job. Nobody even calls you up for photos. If you are that kind of guy who's like, come, we want to shoot a video, this is what you are. And if your clip length crosses 1 hour normally, like that's normal for you, that your clip length is more than 1 hour, yeah, then you have to get into this, or like a dedicated camera, simply because all mirrorless, no matter how good they are, they're not designed for continuous running video camera experience. Most don't have cooling fans, let alone heat chambers. Only some models do. And even in that, the moment you unlock higher frame rates, like R5 Mark II, and you're like, hey, that has cooling vents and all that, I'm gonna buy the battery module that has like external fan. Cool, awesome. It will still overheat. It's not designed for continuous running. It will still overheat, even on 4K. We're not even talking about 8K. 8K, it's like, bro, you can only expect 20-30 minutes. So if you are one of those guys, like I record the video and my clips are like 1 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour longs, yeah, for those sort of people, you have to get into this. And you just need it to work, just work. You do not want to spend time in it. Basically, for people who want to be in front of camera rather than behind of it, this is the guy. And long reach is higher priority than shallow depth of field or dynamic range or ISOs. Meaning, if you're capturing a football event and you are not getting paid for like that broadcast grade equipment, what is the next best thing? Capturing everything what's happening. You cannot be like, okay, I have this 70 to 200, but that other goalkeeper in 200 does not look good enough, because again, it's like tiny. But if you have this, you can zoom in. That's the whole point. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can frame. You have in those sort of scenarios where it's like, hey, I need to capture okay footage rather than not capturing it. For those people, they have to get into this. So sports is a very active arena. News, we call it ENG, electronic news gathering equipment. So they are still being made and used. And then you have conferences. I have experience of these. They do drag on from morning to evening. So yeah, you cannot do that sort of recording on any camera. It has to be an ENG grade equipment, only then it can do that. and you can see like they generally have cable output, they have power input, and they have like mixers and all that. So this is designed for that kind of operation where so like put it in a tripod and forget about it. House of worship, that's also a very common use case where you have like places where people are giving some sermon and can easily stretch 3 to 4 hours. That's the why they are still being manufactured, although no longer as mass produced as they used to, but it is still in the game. They're not out of the game yet. So this was my presentation on basically Sony's new latest lineup of 1-inch camcorders. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.